during sex, I was like, kind of like, I put my feet like near their face. And then afterwards, he was like, oh my God, I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't play with your feet. Like, I don't like, and I was like, what? I thought you liked that.
Welcome to Intimacy Play, a podcast by Pleasy Play. We host open discussions with world-leading experts on couples, sex, and intimacy, so you can build a more exciting, fun, and intimate relationship. I'm your host, Mikaela Silva. Hi, Florence. We're so happy to have you with us. So, for anybody that doesn't know Florence, she's one of the co-founders of Come Curious, which is an amazing brand. You do loads of podcasts, YouTubes. You've got really cool Instagram pages as well, you and Reed.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit how that started?
Oh, well, we've kind of been doing Come Curious for about 6 years now. It all started with a very mutual interest in talking about sex all the time. It was something that me and Reed wanted to create to open the conversation sort of further than just the living room that we were both living in, to make other people feel kind of more comfortable with sex and just talking openly about sex. That's kind of how it started. We actually we have a bit of a strange backstory. So me and Reed actually met on a porn set. We were both working behind the camera, and Reed basically needed a new flatmate. I needed to move up to London, and so the rest was kind of history. We moved in from there after sort of finding obviously this very common interest in being very interested in sex. And then when we moved in together, you know, like how you just have those evenings with your flatmates where you sit, like drink some wine. All we spoke about was sex and relationships. And we talk
So
about,
cool.
yeah, we talk about all the things that like we had like hang-ups when we were teenagers, sort of like, what that discharge stuff, like what about like hairs on your nipples and like stuff like that, like all the things that you never talk about with anyone. And just through our conversations, like talking openly about kinks and like fetishes and like wanting to get into like BDSM, we both suddenly felt so much more comfortable and confident with our own sex lives. And one day we were just, because we both obviously had camera experience, one day we just thought, wait, why don't we film this? Just film our conversations, put it online, and sort of see what happens. See if anyone else would be interested in talking about sex, so that other people could feel as confident, I guess, and comfortable as we had been talking about it so openly.
Definitely. I mean, I love that story. I didn't know it. It's so cool. I mean, just how something that's like random, like a job,
Yeah.
can actually lead you to knowing a person that's so similar to you,
Yeah.
and that enables you to actually create a business around that.
Yeah. I mean, it really did start off as a hobby. We were just doing it in our spare time. We both had full-time jobs. Just every single weekend, we would upload a video talking about a different subject on YouTube. And then it kind of grew from there, because it started actually as a Tumblr, like a just a blog, and we'd like answer people's questions and put up little like cute pictures. And then I guess it just turned into what it is today, which is sort of a bigger platform. And now we're even adding more voices and more creators to Come Curious, so that we can get even more people's experiences and voices to share the knowledge, spread the knowledge, open up the conversation even further.
That's amazing. And you can actually feel that you are very open and that you do talk about things that you are passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the real secret when we want to do something that also makes other people love it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you and Reed have such an amazing dynamic. You talk about things so naturally, and you're so open about not only your sex life but how people should also be about their own sex life,
Yeah.
about sexual openness. And that's something that I feel that it's a hard topic for a lot of people.
Yes.
What do you feel that is a struggle for most people?
I think it all comes down to, I mean, fundamentally society and like how we've all been brought up, but I think it really starts in sex education. we have such a bad sex education in a lot of countries around the world. I know that there are some that are progressing and things are probably getting better, we hope, but mostly sex education really didn't teach us the sort of joys and the pleasures of sex, or even about our bodies, even about sex that wasn't just between men and women. We didn't get taught about pleasure. We only got taught about the negative things, like you must not get pregnant, you must use a condom because all these scary diseases are out there. And it basically was fear mongering, I think, and tried to sort of shove sex away and make it even more of a taboo. I mean, sex has always been such a taboo subject, I think, in society. And it's only just recently, I think, that even like bigger media is talking about it more openly, which is actually really amazing. Like, I think it was actually the launch of 50 Shades of Grey. I think that almost like it caused this like ripple effect in mainstream media to start talking about sex, which was actually quite awesome. I mean, people can really like, they can boy 50 Shades off, but it really did start something. I think it started something really incredible. But I mean, it comes down to sex education, family, upbringing, friends, just the taboo nature, and also religion plays a massive part on sort of pushing sex down underneath the bed sheets and sort of back into the bedroom. Like it's kind of crazy when you think about like the fact that we're all here because of sex, but for some reason
Exactly.
we can't talk about it because we're like ashamed or scared. There's just been this huge like fear built up through society about not being able to talk about sex, and I think that starts at education.
I totally relate and agree.
Mm,
I mean, people should talk more about things. Just because they don't talk about it doesn't mean they don't happen.
yeah,
And in the end, it's even worse because you don't know what's going on.
yeah,
You don't even know how to deal with things, even, even pregnancy
right.
in teens and everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that like people end up with teenage pregnancies, more STIs, is that we're not taught about things properly. We're taught about things in a way that it kind of makes sex one of those. I guess when you're a teenager, it almost makes you want to do things in a like more risky way because sex is dangerous and like no one talks about it, and that's what makes it exciting. But and that's where the whole like conversation around consent gets so muddy, and people end up having really bad
Yes.
sexual experiences because we don't even talk about consent in sex education, which is crazy. Like, think about all the situations that we would avoid if there was a conversation around consent at school, or even with your parents and your family. Just being able to own your own body and actually have the voice to say no.
Definitely. I mean, that's such an important issue that people don't
Mm,
talk about.
yeah.
And when you talk about sexual openness, we talk about everything. It
Yeah.
doesn't always need to be about sex. It needs to be, about consent,
Yeah.
about your own body,
Uh-huh.
about knowing what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can so relate. It's actually one of the reasons we created Pleasy Play.
Yeah.
Because we understood that. I mean, I've been married for a couple of years now, and a lot of my friends that are married,
Yeah.
they didn't talk about sex. So it was amazing how ashamed they were to
Mm,
even say, even a joke or
yeah.
have you ever tried this? And I think none of my friends have ever told me that they have used a sex toy.
Yeah.
Not that they should, but it's they're not comfortable with that type of conversation.
Yeah, which is a shame, I think, because I mean, the shame is that there is shame there. Like there
Exactly.
isn't there isn't the fun and the excitement. And I think when you take that away, then you end up with a sex life that isn't as good as it can be, and the communication in the relationship isn't as good, and then you end up with body and confidence issues. And I think being open about sex kind of is just it's like a launch pad to having great sexual connections, romantic connections, even connections with friends and family. I think just having the open conversation, it helps everyone on their journey to self-love, self-discovery, and confidence, and just feeling kind of content and good at communication too.
Definitely. So you actually brought up very interesting points. So a few of them were the downside of not being open. So
Mm,
you're talking about not being able to understand what you want, the consent part. So, what are the biggest upsides of being open in a relationship and just within yourself?
Yeah, well, I think the upsides of being open about sex is definitely having like a better understanding of yourself and your own body, which is probably the most important starting point when it comes to all conversations around sex. I think everyone should start with themselves, and that's talking about masturbation and like stuff like that. Learning about your own pleasure first is a game changer, because then you can take what you know about yourself into situations with partners. um so I feel like that's a massive benefit of being open about sex. And then people just end up, you have better sex, you have better relationships if you're open about sex and you can learn to communicate. Then you can have these really open and honest conversations with partners that just lead you to having, oh my god, like a way better connection with each other. Something that's like deep and like spiritual. And it's I for me now, I can't imagine what a relationship would be like without having those open conversations, because
I know.
they're like the fundamentals, right?
Yes, definitely, definitely. But I mean, a lot of people don't know what that means. So
Mm,
we're talking about being open,
yeah.
talking about sex. How can we, or what type of advice would you give for people to actually act upon this? So how can somebody that's in a relationship
Yeah.
communicate better and start having a more open relationship?
Mm. I think it's,
Well, there are two meanings of on this,
yeah.
but
I think, well, if you haven't been someone that talks about sex openly, I think it is quite a scary and daunting thing to sort of bring in, especially to a relationship that's already in place. Like maybe you've been together for a year or two and you've never really had these conversations before. These can be really scary things to bring up. Um, but there are ways, there are methods, and I think like if you really do have the passion to bring that conversation in, then it's all about normalizing the talking about sex. And you can start these things. I guess my tips for this sort of situation is maybe go back to basics. Write each other a letter. Write a letter about like all the things that you want, you desire, you want to talk about with your partner. And maybe not a letter, it could be text, it could be pillow talk, or my actually, I'm the biggest fan of the sex debrief, which is
hmm.
having a conversation after sex about everything that you really loved and you enjoyed about that sexual encounter. But then you can also slip in some, yeah, I wasn't too sure when you did that, or actually, I'm not that into that. I don't really find that much pleasure there, but I really loved when you did that. Always put it in like a compliment sandwich.
I've seen that YouTube where you and Rita are talking about the sandwich. I think
Mm,
you're talking about oral sex and feedback. And yeah, it
yes.
makes total sense. I mean,
Right?
don't criticize just because you want to criticize,
Mm-hmm.
but say, I really like how you did this. Maybe this part we can try a different thing. And yeah, I really like you, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe those were not the best examples, but I definitely like the way that you can put in a
Yeah.
sandwich the bad part in the middle, something
Yes.
that we can improve.
Exactly. I think that's the best way to do it, especially if you're really like, if you have a deep connection with this person and you love them, like you don't want to be mean. Like, and also I think it is actually normalizing saying like constructive criticism, I guess, with
Hmm.
sex. Like it's normalizing that conversation. Like it actually happened to me the other day. I was having sex with a new partner. Actually, not a new partner, it was someone that I'd slept with a while ago. And before, I am sure like they were into feet. So this time, I was like, during sex, I was like, kind of like, I put my feet like near their face, and then afterwards, he was like, "Oh my god, I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't play with your feet. Like, I don't like." And I was like, "What? I thought you liked that." But like, it was a good conversation to have. Like, we just laughed about it afterwards, because
I love it.
it's just, it should be a normal conversation and a comfortable thing to do. But I think it's all about communication at the end of the day, and also honesty. like I think honesty in relationships can go a long way, especially when it comes to sex. But I think people are scared of honesty because they're scared of upsetting their partner. But it's not anything to be scared of. Like, it might hurt, first of all, if you're not used to that sort of communication. But if you want to really take your relationship to the next level, it's the most important thing. Like, always having this open and honest dialogue. Like, you can't go wrong with that.
Definitely. I mean, what you said is, for me, it's definitely spot on. And one of the things that I feel that is very hard, even harder than communicating, for some couples, obviously,
Yeah.
is sex toys.
Oh.
Although
Yeah.
I think, now we're going to spice up a little bit the conversation. Although I think that they can actually help a couple try new things. So
Yes.
from my experience, and from even I had a friend of mine talking to me. He's saying, "Well, you know what? I actually love anal play,
Yeah.
but I don't know how to tell her."
Yes.
So it's like, well, why don't you try and buy a toy?
Uh-huh.
And then you can see if she wants to try it on herself, or you can say, well, why don't we try it to see if it's nice? So, even a sex toy can open up the conversation and make things
Definitely.
flow.
Definitely. I think it's quite a hard one, especially guys with anal play as well, because I think that there still is like quite a big stigma surrounding that, and quite like fair play to your mate though, because I think it's really hard to be open as a guy about like enjoying anal play, because I mean, as we put like quite a lot of like anal related topics on our YouTube channel, and there's just so many guys that would be like, oh my god, no, like that would make me gay or whatever. But actually it's just such an amazing thing for men and like people to experience as well. And sex toys, yeah, definitely can be like a conversation starter. And I think what both partners need to realize is that a sex toy isn't replacing you at all. Like, it's always just an enhancement of pleasure. And why wouldn't you want to enhance pleasure? Like, that's the aim of the game, right? That's why we have sex, is to feel good.
You got actually to the point that I was gonna ask you, because I mean, we do a lot of research with sex toys and understanding how couples perceive the same type of box and
Yeah.
toys. And it was so interesting. We would show a box to a woman.
Yeah.
She'd be really into it, saying, "Okay, I like this. Oh, there's a vibrator. That's cool." And then the guy would come, and one of the first things they would say is, "I like this vibrator. It's small." Just because they would feel they weren't competing with the vibrator.
Oh my
So it's so
gosh.
funny the way that they actually have, obviously a few of our clients, but the
Yeah.
way that was perceived. So it was so important for us to destigmatize that notion that the toy is there to enhance pleasure,
Yeah.
to try new things. It's not to substitute absolutely anyone.
Yeah.
It will never be.
Yeah. And so many people have this hang up, and I don't know why. It's quite, sex toys are quite strange. Like, we've spoken about sex toys for a long time, especially with women. Like, they were introduced in like Sex and the City in the 90s, like Samantha with her wand
Yeah.
and Charlotte with the rabbit vibrator. And so sex toys for women have always been quite normal, but I think they've always been perceived as a replacement for a guy. Like, we've never really spoken about sex toys when it comes to like using them in couples play. It's always been like, oh, like kind of almost like a female empowerment thing. Like, we don't need a man, we've got a sex toy that does the job even better. So I guess like with all that messaging out there, like, it's kind of no wonder that guys are just like, oh god, like, no, I'm like, don't take away from my penis. Like, I'm all you need. You don't need that vibrator over there, that rabbit. But
Definitely.
I don't know. I still think like this is the thing. This is all like why we need to open up this conversation, right? We need to talk about like the benefits of using sex toys and stuff, because it's like, it's so exciting. It's just, and it's the easiest way to spice up your sex life.
I mean, definitely. There was. I mean, we have different people sharing with us different things, and there
Yeah.
was another couple that stuck with me saying, "You know what? We hadn't realized how many things we hadn't tried before,
Yeah.
and that we absolutely love."
Yeah.
So it was simply a way of this was a means for conversation and for an experience.
Yeah, it's such a good way to start the conversation, isn't it? Like bringing in the sex toys to the relationship and say like, hey, like, look, this will be really good because I really enjoy this and I'd really like us to try this together. And then that starts that conversation about sex and intimacy and like what each other enjoys, and then both people can play a part as well. So like if someone says, oh look, this sex toy would be really good for me, the guy can come in and be like, yeah, and I'd really like to try this butt plug as well.
Exactly, but it's, you know, it's the way that people phrase it. You phrase it beautifully, saying, you know, this is something that I really enjoy. Can we try it together?
Yeah,
You know, including the other person, definitely.
exactly.
However, we're only talking about the good parts of being sexually open and talking about things.
Hmm.
Do you believe there are also drawbacks on this, or that there can be?
I was thinking about this, and personally, I don't really see that there are any drawbacks to being open about sex. The only thing that I could think of is judgment from other people around you in your life, because some people just aren't ready to be open about sex, and it can fully stress people out. I know that even just like from my experience with what I do for a living, knowing that I have family members who really don't understand what I do. Like my
Hmm.
dad thinks I work in some sort of sex industry underworld, and that like someday I'm going to be like sexually trafficked because I'm putting myself in like a risky situation. Um
I'm not sure I should laugh or I should cry.
I know, it's just, and I have tried to have these conversations with him as well, and he's just not, he's just like, I'm not, he's like, I'm not, I said, I don't think I need to change my opinion. So okay, cool, just, just sit over there, sit at the back of the room, please. And yeah, and then my uncle also just doesn't understand it, and it's just, it's it's bizarre, and like I think it's almost like something that we need to accept from some people, I guess especially when it comes to religion and upbringing, and you can't really blame people for not wanting to understand because it's just the way they were brought up, and it's probably it's probably because of their own insecurities that they aren't open to having these conversations. So we can't really push our opinions on everyone. um but personally, like, I think having open conversations about sex, they don't need to be out here in the public. They can be between you and your partner or you and your friends. Like, it doesn't have to be this thing that everyone suddenly knows about, which in that case I see absolutely no drawbacks. Do you think there are any drawbacks?
I think you made an amazing point, which is you can be as open as you want with whomever you want.
Mm,
So you can be open with your partner. That doesn't mean you need to comment with your group of friends.
yeah.
You don't need to do a podcast about it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, definitely. I mean, drawbacks. What I feel that can be like a huge drawback, and this I would rely on your experience, would be
Mm,
something like working in the porn industry.
yeah.
Although it was behind the scenes, I mean, it's still seen as with a lot of stigma, isn't it?
Yeah, I think especially around sex work, I mean, people just aren't open to that yet. It's hard to, in a way, it's kind of hard to comment because when you get into these, when you start working in a certain industry, you get yourself into a bubble, and suddenly all the people that you talk to, all the people that you know are pro sex workers and pro talking about sex, and you kind of don't even initiate conversations with people that don't feel the same way as you anymore. Um, so it's kind of hard to say. Like, I definitely, like, say if I had a new partner and I met their parents, I wouldn't tell them everything that I did. Like, I would
I wonder
probably,
why.
because they wouldn't understand. Like, I think you'd have to really assess, wouldn't you? And like, some people just aren't ready. Some people just aren't ready to know the full truth. And I think that's I think it's okay in some respects. I think for the older generation, I think like there's no that we can't like go around changing every single person's opinion. But I think hopefully for the younger generation, we can have those conversations with people and help them understand and see a new way, a different way of thinking, because maybe the way that they are brought up isn't the way that they actually believe and actually want to conduct themselves.
I agree, and I mean, I think that what you and Reed do with your YouTube channel and all the content that you produce does help not only younger generations but also older to be more open about that. So
Yeah.
it's a way to make it easier for anybody to start talking about it, or at least to listen
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. I think what was funny, like when we started Come Curious, a lot of all the sex advice that we saw online was very anonymous. Like people write erotica or had sex blogs. No one had their face to it. Which is one of like what that was one of the driving forces of what made us want to do Come Curious, because we wanted to put our face out there so that people could see that real people like you would talk about sex openly, that we were actually talking about sex and we were putting our face out there and we weren't afraid to talk about sex. And that was kind of what really pushed us, because I think if people see that other people are doing things, they're like, oh, they're doing it and nothing bad's happened. Hey, actually, they're more confident than I am. Maybe I should do that too. Maybe I should have these conversations. Hey, look, they're talking about it so naturally, so easily. Huh, okay, cool. Maybe I'll take that into my own sex life.
I mean, definitely, and that's something that has also to do with body image. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the more that you see that there are different bodies, that people express themselves differently,
Yes.
the more you accept how other people look and how you look and
Yeah.
how you accept yourself. I was listening to a video of you and Reed talking about body image
Mm-hmm.
and how much you have accepted your own bodies better. Isn't that it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't it's literally just through conversation and just talking about things, and also the 30-day new challenge that we came up with on our podcast Fucks Given, with actually our new Come Curious member Ben Hurst. He was talking to us about how he like came to accept like the way his body was, which you don't really hear from guys. You don't hear a lot about body confidence issues from men. And he had done this series of nudes every single day for himself, like not sharing with anyone, literally just for himself, to sort of see his body in like all these different angles. And it helped him sort of, yeah, love his body like the way it was. And me and Reed took this on and we sort of shared it and did it ourselves. And oh my God, it was such a game changer, because I think we all have these, like everyone has body hang-ups, don't they? And it affects the way we go into sex. But if we can learn to accept our body in all these different ways, then we can be our most confident self.
Interesting. I don't know how I'd feel about that actually.
You should try it.
So you
Definitely.
felt better in the end?
Yeah. Yes. A nude every single day for 30 days. Doesn't have to be like an art, like masterpiece. It can be in your underwear. It could be like completely nude. Just a nude in a folder on your phone for yourself, private folder. No one else is going to see it.
So, challenge accepted.
Yes.
I'll get back to you in 30 days.
Yay!
That's actually a really cool experience to share. So, you know, exactly how it felt. Because
Yeah.
obviously, I do have things on my body that I don't love and others that I like more.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to feel.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Let me know. Let me know how it goes.
I will, and I think I might set this challenge as well to a couple of friends to see how they would react. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yes. Please do.
And I'll ask everybody to share in your Instagram,
Yes,
so we
please.
can have people talking about this and making body image something that's more natural and that people are accepting it.
Yeah. 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 I think body image definitely. It ties everything ties in. Everything ties in to being open and honest about sex.
So we have we have been talking for a little bit for a while, and I've loved our conversation. Is there anything you'd like to share that's coming up soon? Any news that we have that you might have with Come Curious, with Reads?
Yes, actually, I do have a personal project coming out very, very soon. It's a solo mini-series podcast on how to heal a heartbreak, because I've been going through a little bit of a heartbreak this year, and the pain and the struggle of it inspired me to make a podcast to help other people heal from them. And I talked to a series of different professionals and experts, friends, family in my podcast to get advice from everyone on how to heal a heart. And it's been a really, really great ride, and I cannot wait to share it with everyone. It will be on the Fucks Given podcast stream, so if you don't already, go and follow our podcast, which is Fucks Given, F***KS Given, and it's on all podcast platforms. Just general sex chat with different guests every single week, all about their sexual experiences. And yeah, and then also just Come Curious. Actually, Come Curious Instagram, which is spelled COME Curious, is popping off at the moment because we've got a few new creators on board. So we've got Drew, Six, and Ben, all adding to the Come Curious experience now, all adding in
Wow.
their experiences, their knowledge, talking about bisexuality, masculinity, toxic masculinity, and oh my god, so much. And also astrology, which is
Ah.
it's like a really new thing to Come Curious, but I'm so excited for it. So yeah, please go and check all that out. Also at my personal Instagram, which is at Florence Bark.
I mean, I'm sure everybody that's listening already knows the podcasts, but if you don't, please do check them out, because I've spent a couple of hours listening to loads of things, and it's really opened my eyes and the way that I think, and the way just things that sometimes we feel that it's normal to think like this. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
So just check it out, and I'm sure you'll love it. And that was Intimacy Play. To find out more about Pleasy Play and how we can take your relationship to the next level, visit pleasyplay.com. And then make sure to search for Intimacy Play in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Pleasy Play, thanks for listening.